Hey everybody, John here with Luxe. We're taking a look at one of the new Charger Tailband decals. This has been customized with the word Hellcat cut out of it. So this is a satin black kit. My car is gloss black, so you're gonna see that show through for a nice stealth to look. You will notice that this doesn't look like the cleanest satin black. That's because there's a transfer paper over this. So unlike some of the other kits we sell, this kit is perfectly cut out. You won't need to do any trimming or anything after the fact. You're gonna install it just like this. All you'll need is what we've given you in the kit, and you will need some painter's tape. This is 3/4 of an inch wide. The only thing we're gonna need is something to measure 1/2 inch. We use the yellow 3M automotive tape here. However, any masking tape, painter's tape is gonna work. Just test to make sure that it sticks on the car, because there are some areas where we're gonna make a hinge and we don't want that piece to fall off. But you'll see that when watching this video. So this is the actual OEM Dodge style kit. It's gonna install the exact same way. There is a specific order that we're gonna do this in. So if you follow along, we'll make this very easy for you. Next thing you know, you'll have a tailband stripe on your car. Okay, so you can see everything is off the trunk now. What I'm gonna do is start by wiping the trunk down. You can use the prep spray wipe. That's just an isopropyl and water mixture. So the goal before you install this stripe is to make sure that it is completely smooth to the touch. If you feel anything like a grain of sand or a contaminant, it will show through the final product. So make sure you've really done a good job and you have cleaned the entire surface. The only other thing you need to be aware of is if you have a ceramic coating on your car, you're gonna wanna make sure and polish that off in the area that you're gonna install. So now that we've got the trunk deck lid clean, what I'm gonna do to start this is take the center stripe piece and just lay it on the car. It's really nice because it's pre-cut to go exactly to this body panel and to match the shape of the wing. So I'm pushing it underneath the wing here and sliding it as far back as I can get it so it's registered towards the back of the car. Then all we're gonna do is make sure that the decal lines up right here with the body. And this is where we introduce the painter's tape. So we're gonna draw ourselves a hinge just down the middle of the stripe. Doesn't have to be perfectly centered on the car. I'm just trying to get it as centered as possible. There we go. Now that we've got that, the only other thing I'm gonna do is mark one corner. I'm actually gonna mark the other corner because I'm gonna start on the left side. I'm marking this corner to make sure when I pull the backing paper that we haven't wandered left or right. We shouldn't be able to with the hinge being right here in the middle, but that'll give us just one extra layer of protection. So from this point, we're gonna go ahead and fold this piece up and get to starting the install. Take my knife, go ahead and cut off the backing paper. So we pull this backwards and lay it here. This is why you don't want to do this outside or anything. We want to expose the adhesive as little as possible to the elements. So we're going to make a nice clean cut right on this backing paper. Run your finger along the edge of the paper to make sure that there's no little tears of paper there that might get under the install. And now fold the stripe over. We want to make sure that we stayed centered, that everything's exactly where it was. Because I like to get nice and deep underneath the wing, it does slightly complicate the install. But you can see with this being a repositionable dry application vinyl and us having these tools in place, it's a very, very easy thing to install. The only thing that could really complicate this for you is if you're outside in the sun or you're not doing it in the right conditions. So I'm gonna take a look there. Take a look here, I'm still aligned. You can see we have a little bit of a bunch of the material right here, but that's because of how deep we're trying to tuck under the wing. So at this point, without very much pressure at all, I'm just putting the vinyl down to draw myself a little hinge. Take my squeegee, and start to apply the vinyl towards the trunk of the, or towards the spoiler here. See, I'm not gonna get all the way down. I wanna make sure, right now I've got all of this applied, so I know there's no way that the decal is gonna wobble on me. I'll go ahead and remove the hinge. Pull this back over. And now the important thing is knowing where this tape is so that we can ensure, yep, everything's nice and straight. So you look, got a couple wrinkles right here, so I can pull that right back up, be a little bit more purposeful in my squeegee, and take care of those. So now I'm just gonna work center out and get ready to start pushing the squeegee back towards the spoiler of the car. Last half an inch or so, see I just use chopping motions. This helps me get the vinyl nice and deep underneath the spoiler. This is more important if you have like a bright car, like a green car or a yellow car or something. You don't want to see any paint under the spoiler. There we go. Everything's installed fine. You can see we're just touching the fender here. We're just touching the fender here. The next step is going to be remove the liner and get the applied all the way around. So, separating the liner from the decal is one of the most complicated parts of the install, which is great because it's actually very easy. And what we're going to want to do here is, however, you can just separate the transfer paper from the vinyl. Maybe easiest. Work that right around. So you'll notice when I remove the transfer paper, sometimes if the vinyl hasn't been squeegeed all the way down, you'll have, the transfer paper will actually pull up a little area or a bubble. This is why we don't want to pull up transfer paper in the sun or in heat at all, because if that happens, it'll actually stretch the vinyl as well, and you'll end up with an area that's very hard to deal with. So pulling transfer paper up pretty slow, rolling it over itself. Find this to be the safest method. Just a couple areas here where we can squeegee down little things we see now that the transfer paper is out of the way. Everything looks great. I'm going to go to lock this edge on this side. Last thing to do is to take heat and evenly heat the whole surface of the vinyl. You'll see any areas that you need to squeegee down. By doing this, they'll pop up with a little bubble. Okay, so that's the first part of the install. This is a 5-piece kit. So now you have piece 1 down, and we'll be able to register off this piece and go down the side. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and install one of the second pieces here to this kit. And you can see we're gonna run into a couple of things. We've got a spoiler that we've got to deal with, and we also come off this kit for our last piece. We also have a seam that we're gonna deal with here. So because we have a seam, we're gonna actually wanna install this piece first. So we really need to make sure this is registered in the perfect spot and it stays right here. So then we can come back and install this piece and install this one last. So similar to this, this decal is gonna touch the metal on the trunk just right here. And it should perfectly line up with this stripe. So you're gonna need more tape. Make myself just a couple pieces. Look at this stripe from above, kind of see where it's landing on the body point of the car and back here at the trunk. Make sure it's straight, it's lined up. The first piece of tape I'm gonna put helps me line this. It's not even on the stripe of the car, it's on the car and it's not going over to the trunk. We're gonna have to open the trunk to install this piece. So here we go, we got that. And we got one there. And one other one just to hold it, we're gonna put right there. At this point, to make sure this tape is not adhered to the trunk of the car, I'll get this out of the way. Roll this over. In case we lose our registration, that's gonna help us find it again. So everything looks great. Looks like we're on the body line exactly where we wanna be. We've got enough material to fold over right here. Everything's staying flat here. I'll just barely loosen that. I need this edge to be perfectly applied to the car because that's where we're gonna draw our hinge. Because I have such thin tape, I'm gonna do a couple strips here to make sure that this will not come off. So I'm gonna have to fold this piece up. If you had fatter tape, you wouldn't need to do quite as many as I did there. But now that we've got this in place, we're gonna go ahead and register our third piece now. So we're gonna go ahead and get the very last piece of this decal kind of put on the car. If you can see, we're gonna want a 1/2 inch gap right here at the bottom. It's most important that we line up that front edge. This back tail is gonna tuck underneath the decal and that we're gonna have a 1/2 inch gap right here. So let's start. This is a 3/4 inch tape. So I'm gonna use it and almost go over the other body line to get rid of a third of it. So should end up with a nice 1/2 inch from that up. There we go. Next step, tear myself a couple more pieces of tape here. I'm looking for the two pieces right here to line up and for the tail to be right underneath. I'll remove this piece of tape. Okay, all that looks great. There we go. So when you line that corner up and the bottom of this tape, everything is just fine. So I'll throw myself a piece of tape there and there. And just check one more time this little tail. Nice. Okay, so we're perfectly along the line here. Everything is registered correctly. We want to draw our second hinge down this way. So we've got a little tail on the bottom piece here, and it's gonna need to go underneath this top piece. Is exactly the right spot. So what I'm gonna do is just hold this to the car, the bottom piece, to make sure that it goes underneath there. I'm gonna take the tape and I'm gonna mark where that needs to go. Okay, so everything is taped on the vehicle. The very first thing we're gonna wanna do is get this piece out of the way. We're gonna do that by just carefully folding it up. Now you can see why I put so much extra tape on that hinge. Because the car is curved, I don't want that to fall off in any way. This will be our first piece we install. Go ahead and remove this. All these pieces here. Now this piece will naturally fall or just sit like that. We're gonna fold it down, remove the backing paper wherever it's easiest. So you can see the first thing I'm gonna do is just squeegee down that last ½ inch close to the hinge, and from there I'm squeegeeing side to side, never going up and doing the whole thing. There's a lot of strategy behind why I'm squeegeeing this way, so you're gonna wanna do the same thing. We're gonna get it all the way to the top. Everything looks great. And now when we lay this down, it's inside of that tape, so we know the top decal is gonna come by and cover that without an issue. Okay, again, put firm pressure to make sure that we've got it applied everywhere. Looks like we do. So wherever it's easiest, we'll start removing the backing paper or the transfer paper. Got it right here. Be especially careful around the cutout letters if you opted for any of those. See, there's a little bubble right there because we didn't squeegee down hard enough. So because I have a little bit of a bubble and this being 3M, all I'm gonna do is press on it. I didn't take a squeegee and drive it in any direction. I just drove it straight down and it's gone now. So pull that off. We've got so now we're on to the very last piece of the decal, which is the piece that we flipped up here. We're gonna go ahead and start by removing the transfer paper. Make sure that we can get it folded back over with that hinge still in place. Now I'm just gonna hold a little bit of pressure on the piece and squeegee. See, I'm kind of moving down, up. Again, just never going straight to the back of the car. I wanna kind of deal with this in small sections. So see, I'm kind of following the body of the car with my strokes. And now that that's done, I'm just going straight over the edge in a chopping motion. Not gonna go like this, that could cause a bunch of wrinkles. Instead, we're chopping down. It's always going with the fold of the material. We covered up that perfect there. Looks like our front edge is installed perfectly as well. Yep. And now, just to remove the transfer paper. Now we repeat. Heat really helps when folding the vinyl over this edge. And again, I'm just gonna run it over everything. Make sure I don't see any bubbles pop up. And do our final post heat. This is a wrap vinyl. This is a vinyl that you're gonna need to post heat so that it doesn't wanna return to its original shape. But there, we now have one side of this decal complete. Half the decal installed now. As you can see, we're following the body line just like the OEM stripe. Hellcat's cut out for a nice look. You've got the seam going down, so there won't be any problem with rain or anything here. Front edges line up perfect. Edges line up perfect at the trunk. So now we just go and install the other side.